All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to something that seems very much different than what we normally do here. I am joined by the amazing Homie and the Dude, Tom and Bodie here, who are some of the minds behind the Scorched Basin, which is a new, let me see if I can say this right, system generic campaign setting that is currently on Kickstarter. You guys were able to get it funded in like 7 or 8 hours, which is
Mhm.
phenomenal. And now we're just seeing how many awesome, amazing things can happen in addition to the initial funding. So these two wonderful gentlemen were kind enough to allow me to pretend like I know what I'm doing and ask them some questions about themselves and the other cool stuff that Homie and the Dude have created, and then obviously to talk a little bit about the Scorched Basin. So, first things first, let's start with kind of the most obvious question, which is who are Homie and the Dude?
Well,
Ooh.
great question. First of all, thank you for having us so
Oh,
much.
thank you very much.
Appreciate you very, very much, and stoked to be here today. And Homie and Dude, I mean, we're Bodie and Tom, a father and son TTRPG team from. We're actually American, but we live out in the UK. And we love creating supplements and stuff for people out there who want something fun to play in the game, something a little bit different, something to take their gem into the next level. And yeah, and stuff that we want to see in the space. So that's kind of who we are and what we do.
Fantastic. So, I've done a little bit of research. Homie and the Dude is, as far as I was able to tell, kind of became a thing during lockdowns and all that lovely time that we don't talk about anymore. Um, but as far as like TTRPGs with both of you, is that something that kind of predated Homie and the Dude? Have you guys been playing for years, or was it something that you found during lockdown, like a lot of people?
I played it when I was a kid. So I played it when I was a teenager with my drama teacher, actually, and a bunch of friends. And it was 3.5 at the time, which just as someone who is not good at maths, I did not vibe with. It took me an afternoon to make a character, and I was like, this is redonkulous. So I left it for a while after that. But then, Tom, do you want to tell them about how you discovered the next little bit there and kind of
Sure.
how that went?
Yeah, so we were, yeah, just kind of in lockdown mode, and I stumbled across, and I guess it's one of the first actual plays from what are they called? Acquisitions Incorporated. Yeah. So, the likes of Chris Perkins and Mike Rahulik and just the OG gang performing live in front of PAX crowds. And I was fascinated by it. It seemed like they were using this medium of TTRPGs to have incredible improv sessions, but with costumes and sets and audience interaction and all of that. And I shared it with Bodhi, and have a look at this. This is incredible. And I think that probably reignited Bodhi's curiosity and his remembrance of, at that time D&D, but in more generally today in just TTRPG games in general. And that got us kind of thinking about, well, maybe we should try to have a home game. And so that was the inception of it. And we tried it like most people do with the starter set. Back then it was Lost Mines of Phandelver. And we had, I think, maybe 6 people around the table, and Bodhi doing his first impression of a DM. And from there, it was just, onward and upward. We were just figuring out different ways to play, different settings, how we could potentially dovetail TTRPGs into Homie and the Dude, and kind of strength to strength. We're over here making books. This is our third book that we've done, Scorched Basin, and yeah, it's been quite a journey for us. We have now really embraced the community, and the community has embraced us, and it's been rewarding in so many different ways.
That's fantastic. I too
Mm.
was lured into the drug that is tabletop RPGs through Acquisitions Incorporated.
Oh,
Oh,
Um,
wow.
amazing.
my first, the first adventure that I ever wrote was actually a thing for fourth edition D&D called D&D High, which is about a mythical high school for D&D adventurers where the player characters were the uncool kids and the bad guys were the cool kids because I have no trauma in my childhood from going to public schools. So that's great. Obviously, Bodhi, you started with what I consider one of the most complicated versions of D&D.
Yeah.
Since then, what are some of your guys' favorite TTRPG systems that you've gotten to play around with?
So ever since the OGL crisis that went down, we have, we as third-party creators who were writing a D&D book at that, literally at that moment when that news was released, and we were like, it's done. That's it. We're done, kind of thing. Like there's no movement here, and so we started branching out at that point, and Avatar Legends had just come out. And we love Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's, as a kid, I grew up watching it. I was in that perfect range where I was, probably late tweens, early teens when that was kind of, towards the middle of end of that. And so we ran that for a little bit and made an awesome actual play that we're super, super proud of. And then from there, we were like, whoa, this system was so vastly different. Powered by the Apocalypse is so dramatically different to D&D that we were like, this is kind of fun. We don't think Powered by the Apocalypse is exactly the one for us, but we're like, that was a really cool start. And then from there, the floodgates opened. And over the last, couple of years, we've probably played somewhere between 10 to 20 new systems. We've really tried to spread ourselves far and wide, trying as many different things as we can, and just trying to understand the space, trying to understand game design better so that when I write mechanics, they're cleaner, more succinct, that kind of thing. And just also seeing what the options are out there, because I think it's a way that I think about it in my head is I'm a skateboarder. So I think of it as, you're rolling up to a set of stairs and you're like, maybe I could jump down this. And the first guy that jumps down it then unlocks that for everybody else. Everybody else can then now, we're like, if he did it, I can jump down it too. And then when the next person is like, I'm going to try and kickflip down it or, pop shove down it or whatever, and they land that, it opens that door for everyone else. And so it just became it just became this rolling kind of trend of unlocking more and more things and seeing what was possible out there, being like, wow, okay, a 2d6 system, this is really cool. A dice pool system, that's really, really interesting. A system that doesn't even use dice, that's really, really cool and interesting. And so, we just started exploring, and I think actually at this point, in truth, Tom and I haven't, we have played in D&D games as players, but neither of us have run a D&D game since we started playing new systems, since the OGL crisis. So we just found the beauty in the space across all the different options that are out there, really.
Excellent. Tom, do you have any systems that kind of popped out as, ooh, this was really interesting or different?
Yeah, I think probably if you asked us what our favorite system was at this point, although, we have a couple of them, um, Orbital Blues, which is a cowboy bebop inspired system. It's a D6 dice game, and it has some real cool mechanics in it that we really, really like. So one of the mechanics has to do with soundtrack. So your player has a soundtrack, and at times you can kind of trigger that for really cinematic moments. And so I would say that for me currently is probably the one that we've had our most epic experiences at the table with. It's Orbital Blues is by a company called Soul Muppet. They're out here in the UK as well, and they do a really good job. The layout of their books are awesome. The actual system is really cool, and they seem to be, supporting these, let's call them tentpole products that they have with more accessories for them. And so Orbital Blues has a couple of new things that they're bringing out as well that we're pretty excited about.
That sounds so fun. I'm a
Yeah.
massive Cowboy Bebop fan.
Oh, check it out.
Specifically, I in my youth, I played jazz from like sixth grade and all the way through college, and so
Amazing.
Tank is probably one of the greatest intros to anything that has ever existed. And my favorite thing about it is the composer that wrote it never touched jazz before, had never done anything with it, and they just decided like this feels like jazz, and just made this insanely incredible song, and continues to just make amazing stuff.
Oh man, and anything that Watanabe puts out, you know, is going to be soundtrack. You know, whether it's Samurai Champloo or the latest series Lazarus, you know, all of them are absolute masterpieces with jazz legends laced throughout. You know, Kamsai Washington coming in for Lazarus and Bonobo and all those great people, or Bonobo, it's unbelievable music, and that's something that we love massively. For us, a good soundtrack is so important, which is why the Scorched Basin has music in it, because we just need, for Tom and I, we're such people who emote through music and enjoy, you know, a scene in a movie is doubly powerful when there's great music behind it. Same with a TV show, you know, an anime, whatever it might be. We really wanted to bring that into the book as well, because of that just love of years Tom and I have been, you know, growing our like space and loving that musical soundtracking kind of area. So yeah, fully agree with you. Tank, one of the greatest intros ever. Absolutely ever.
Excellent. Well, to shift gears slightly, you guys mentioned Scorched Basin is a pot three for you. Since my first introduction to you guys was actually, I believe, your wife reaching out to me on Reddit. I missed Sky Zephyrs and the Wandering Tavern when they were being kickstarted, and I think my audience is a little bit new to it as well. So let's start with, what is Sky Zephyrs?
Great question. A question we ask ourselves. Sky Zephyrs is a 5e / system agnostic. A lot of the rules and mechanics are pretty, you know, you could use them alongside most systems, but it's specifically written in 5e or 2024 language, basically. And it's a Sky vehicle mechanic system that allows you to incorporate airships and flying vehicles into your TTRPG games. Along with it, though, you get a mountain of NPCs to crew airships with. You get over 200 parts and stations to custom build your very own airship for your party and let them redesign and modularize their entire ship, which becomes part of the family, becomes part of the party, as we found when playtesting it. You also get a mountain of sky creatures that have this weird, whimsical kind of nature about them, bunch of items and player features that are unique to, for example, being the mechanic on the ship, being the pilot, being the arcane fuelman, all that good stuff. So it comes with a butt ton of stuff, including like weather mechanics, three-dimensional movement. So we've managed to make it so that instead of, you know, in D&D where you're like, how would I work out the height versus the angle of this shot? It's like a hypotenuse calculation that needs to be done there. And we've managed to come up with a system that allows for three-dimensional combat on a two-dimensional plane. So for battle maps and things like that. Not to mention it comes with a mountain of battle maps, awesome tokens that we provide for all of the NPCs, creatures, and ships that come with it. And yeah, it was just our first foray into creating something that we needed for our world, because my first homebrew world was a land of floating islands. Imagine, you know, Avatar, the blue people one though, where all the rocks are floating in the sky and they're flying between them. That kind of vibe was what I had going on. And I just realized that there was very little way for people to get from one place to another other than air travel. And D&D just didn't have much at the time. There was Wildjammer that had been homebrewed by the community that existed. There was Spelljammer. There was a few things in Descent into Avernus and Ghost of Saltmarsh, but not really much. There was also Star Wars 5e, which was, pretty excellent for sci-fi stuff and very well refined by the point I kind of got to it. But none of them really kind of ticked the boxes that I want to tick. There was some momentum mechanics that I really wanted in there. There was, that modularizing your ship and allowing for people to, almost man different parts and stations while you're flying and are in combat and things like that. So, it was just our first deep foray into the TTRPG space and game design and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So, obviously, kind of the idea of Avatar Blue version inspired it a little bit. Were there other things that kind of inspired the idea?
Yes. Massively so, massively so. For me, that whole world is exciting in steampunk, basically. It's very, very steampunk, very dieselpunk. So if you look at a lot of the airships, or Zephyrs as we call them, provided in that book, they have like blimps, whether they're like attached to the wings or like above them. They have fans and jets and thrusters and things like that. We do have some that are a bit more whimsical. So if you want to do the standard like Treasure Planet or like Peter Pan style pirate ship, you can have sails and things like that will help you fly and stuff like that. But it's inspired by so many different things. I mean, Treasure Planet was one off the rip that, was a huge inspiration to me as a child. I think there's so many great, the Mortal Engines series, Howl's Moving Castle, also even just the bathhouse in Spirited Away in some ways had this weird kind of steampunk kind of feel to it. And there's just so much amazing content within that realm that then actually inspired the world that I created. So that world is what then fully influenced a lot of that. So the NPCs you'll see throughout it, we have like a mafia crew that are, these mafiosos that you could have on an airship. We've got a pirate crew with a pirate king that if you wanted to have a Tortuga from Pirates of the Caribbean kind of style situation going on, you could build off of that. But the whole thing was designed, the main inspiration for it was to just be a super modular system that could be used for those steampunk travels that we all kind of yearn for from our childhood, basically.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned Howl's Moving Castle, and that kind of transitions a little bit directly into your second product, which is obviously completely legally distinct from any copywritten entity. But let's talk about the Wandering Tavern.
Yeah, so the Wandering Tavern was it basically a kind of derivative of Sky Zephyrs in that during the Sky Zephyrs campaign, we had stretch goals, and one of the stretch goals was to build an STL, a 3D model of the Wandering Tavern. And so once we achieved that stretch goal, there it is, yeah. Yeah. And so once we achieved that stretch goal, there was just a lot of comments and interest in the Wandering Tavern. And so, as the days went on and the buzz continued, we started talking internally inside the office and started saying, well, seems like people really, really, really like the Wandering Tavern, which is this literally like an island-sized airship. It has, 17 layers of locations and all of this different stuff that we put into just the artwork and the STL. And so at some point, probably pretty toward the end of Sky Zephyrs, we thought, you know what, we may have just stumbled upon our next project, which was to build out the world of the Wandering Tavern. And so it was. That's what we decided to do. And it was like literally about, I guess it was maybe just under a year later, we launched the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter. And, that kind of got us on our way. Sky Zephyrs was like a test, almost like a a proof of concept test of could we do Kickstarters. And then the Wandering Tavern was like an affirmation, a confirmation that, yeah, we not only can we do them, but this is now our second one. We're learning how to do this. And so that was the basis of the Wandering Tavern.
So you've mentioned STLs. Do you guys do the 3D modeling yourself? Do you have someone on your team that does it, or who specifically deals with that aspect?
We've had a friend paint one of the STLs, but usually we farm them out to others that do them for us. So we have had, I guess we've had a few different consultants do STLs for us. This last project with Scorched Basin, we've had a guy named Gloomy Kid do his magic on a couple STLs from Scorched Basin. So one of them is a rider. We call them bashers. It's a rider vehicle. So this kind of, desert patched together Mad Max style vehicle. And then he also formed a rider like hanging outside the vehicle, which is really cool. And then he did another tribe called the Unsettled. So the Unsettled are more kind of like a Fremen inspired people within the basin. And they tend to master different aspects of having powers to move things or to manipulate things. And so there's one of an unsettled that's moving some sand across the basin, almost like a wave. So that's really cool. And then we have our other STL artist. His name is Eduardo, and he's based out of Bristol,
Brazil.
Brazil, which is kind of close to Bristol.
No,
Tiny little like body of water between them, but
yeah, in pronunciation only.
He's called Mystic Lore Studios, I believe.
Mystic Lore,
Sorry, Magic Lore Studio. My apologies.
Yeah, that's
right
it.
there.
And he did two other really, really cool STLs. One of them was of a vehicle called the One Wheeler. So this is a one-wheel vehicle. What is it like, Boats? Isn't it like a one from?
Yeah, it's essentially a single halo wheel that the rider sits within. I believe I want to say Obi-Wan rides one in one of the prequels. I feel like it at one point. But yeah, it's essentially this mono wheel vehicle that you can ride in that has some like turret guns at the front, massive exhausts coming out the back, some chains kind of hanging down. And when you actually print it, the STL of it, the chains are actually free hanging and can like move and stuff. So it's all of the STLs we've had made for this one are absolutely insane. They have really, really, really gone above and beyond with the detail on these STLs for the Scorched Basin. But yeah, we love STLs. Who doesn't love a little model at their table?
Oh yeah. I have a buddy of mine that actually has an we'll try this one more at a time. Etsy shop where he does. He has a couple different 3D printers, and so he designed this. This is a fireball, which has 8d6 dice
awesome!
in it. So it's literally a fireball bottle.
Nice.
Nice.
That's so cool.
So
Yeah.
well, since we've talked about the Scorched Basin, let's dig into that. So the kind of press and marketing for it basically calls it like Mad Max meets Dune. And obviously compared to Sky Zephyrs and the Wandering Tavern, which both obviously kind of linked together, this seems to be kind of a big departure. So what was kind of the starting point of going from the Wandering Tavern to, hey, let's go down to the ground and, I don't know, let's just scorch everything and turn it into a desert?
Well, like all wildness that comes out of Homie and the Dude, it starts with our community. And the community, we had a bunch of options that we were thinking about for our next one, and we put it out to our community, and they spoke, and they wanted Dune / Mad Max and desert setting and that kind of thing. And so we got really excited about it and just went for it. And obviously, I'm a huge Dune fan. I'm a massive Mad Max fan, and so many other things contributed to the inspiration of this one, whether it be John Carter or Tatooine and Jakku from Star Wars, Fallout. There's so many things that contributed to the concepts that are baked into this book. Things that I know many of us love and loved, whether it's in video games, TV shows, books, whatever it might be, movies. We've all really enjoyed. So it was easy. The inspiration has been there for a long time. I've been excited about writing something in the desert for a long time, and thankfully, my writing partner, Emily, is just an incredible big concept thinker. She is able to come up with wild and wicked ideas that are perfect for something as expansive and amazing as the Scorched Basin. So, we were just super fortunate to have this idea and to be able to work on a project that does come with so many awesome things like, these desert vehicles that you can put into your game, magic systems that, are similar to that kind of spice, Fremen, Dune feeling, kind of thing. We've got rich aristocrats and creatives living in the Basin wall that are like, these crazily dressed people called the Kai who give that, Atreides kind of Bene Gesserit, the capital from Hunger Games kind of vibe as you go around there. We've got warrior women that have a tribe that are known as some of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the world. They are completely deadly and train day in and day out just to find the best ways to skewer you and eat you later. It's one of those settings that just has so much to it, and we went way above board. Like it got wild at a certain point where we were just, I was like, we're gonna put languages in it. We're gonna have an alchemy system. We're gonna have a new magic system, a new species. Religions, factions, hierarchies. All this stuff, and it spiraled and spiraled, but in a way that we couldn't have been more happy to have brought together. And I'll be honest, it's the thing I'm most proud of that I've ever made. It's a beautiful testament to the progression and the development we've made as a company and as a team as well here at HomieandtheDude.
Fantastic. So, obviously you mentioned Sky Zephyrs was very kind of 5th edition coded. Wandering Tavern, a little bit more generic, but still kind of coded towards 5th edition. This one is, again, marketed as a system generic book. What kind of difficulties show up when you're not tying yourself, especially if you're dealing with mechanics, when you're not tying yourself to a game system?
It's a great question, an absolutely incredible question. And the answer is, you would think by not tying yourself to a game system that it would be easier because you have freedom. You have complete, and in some way the development of the mechanics in our book is that. Like, you will find fun things that you've not seen in other systems. You'll see ways that you can do stuff that you've not seen in other systems, and a bunch of stuff like that. However, we wanted to make it system agnostic, so it could be paired with any system. It can be played using any system, basically. The player options or character options can all work in conjunction with being a tabaxi bard, if you so please, or whatever else it might be. So the difficulties that came with it was I had to develop a language that meant that it was easily convertible into other systems, and it's something that GMs could read in a flash and understand very quickly and be able to apply to their game in a heartbeat. So for example, it's things like not giving a specific amount of damage, but giving GMs a range of damage that could then be applied. So, it might be a medium amount of damage, and that then, as a GM, you can interpret what would a NPC of this level be dealing out as a medium amount of damage for them. And it's things like that are very basic, but allow GMs to interpret it. And I said this to someone asked a question the other day about the system agnostic stuff. And I said to them, as a GM, you could prepare in advance. You could convert, the stat block of the creature that your players are going to be facing in the next session if you want to before the session. Or you could interpret it as you're going, and it could be something that you don't even actually have to convert beforehand. You can just do it live and convert it in your head as you're going. And it's simple enough that is a pretty easy process. So that was the difficulty, was getting that language right, getting that range band system that I talked about right, and making sure that that works nicely. And don't get me wrong, this is my first proper iteration of it, so it's going to keep getting better with each, product that we release. I'm going to keep refining it, making it cleaner, simpler, more digestible, all that kind of stuff with each iteration that comes out. So this is just the beginning of my kind of step into that system agnostic space.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we've kind of touched on a few different things, but I have some specific things that are mentioned that I'd love, as much as you're willing to offer us. Specifically, you mentioned that you created your own magic system for this. What makes it different from like your standard Vancian Dungeons and Dragons magic system, or something that you'd see in other TTRPGs? Like what makes your magic system unique?
Go for it, Boots.
Yeah, I got you, Holmes. Tom's like, I've played it in games, but I
didn't create it.
Yeah. So the magic system is super interesting. First of all, I'll talk about the style, the flavor of it that is so vastly different from anything that is kind of out there at the moment that we've seen. So firstly, the magic system is based off of you needing to be immersed into a culture that involves inhaling a magical crystal, basically, so that you can accrue this magical energy and this ability to actually exist within another state of existence, a higher state of existence called the current. The current is essentially the ability to exist and see the frequency waves that exist within all things at all moments. So you as a being would be able to see the frequency waves of the table in front of you, of the person to your right, of the plant on the ground over there, and see the different ways that they kind of interact, often through the auras that their waves are giving off and things like that. So it gives you deeper insight into the things around you as a starting point. However, then, what you can become after being immersed is a wave manipulator, someone who is able to physically interact with the waves of something else, manipulate them to do something you want, and to outside people that looks like magic, but it's just science. You're just manipulating their waves and altering things within them that allows you to perform these extra feats, these incredible feats, called manipulations, as we kind of call them. So, one of the drawbacks of it, though, is unless you become something called untethered, which is an ability to then interact with the waves of something without touching them, you must be within physical contact of whatever you are manipulating. So there is drawbacks to the system. It's not this all-powerful thing. You have to be within physical contact range of the thing that you are kind of engaging with so that you physically can manipulate the waves, essentially. So that's the flavor of how it kind of looks and operates and how it kind of functions. And not only that, but this has lore that stems back into their ancestors who were related to the Doflok that live underground, that use the 6 frequencies of sound to communicate and interact with one another and things like that. So yeah, lots of depth in terms of how players can describe, how they're doing it, how, they can visualize the world around them, how the GM can describe stuff to that player specifically, as opposed to the rest of the party, similar to like someone having dark vision or tremor sense or something like that. So yes, then mechanically the way it works is you get allotted 2 resources, one called current points, one called flow points. Current points can be spent on purchasing manipulations or like unlocking manipulations, which are spells that you can do or magical abilities that you can do. And the other one is flow points. Flow points are the resource that you spend to use those magical abilities, basically. And it's that simple. So The depth that then comes into it is with each person who becomes a wave manipulator, they can choose to be, you've got body manipulations, which are the physical forms of beings, so creatures, people around you, objects, which are anything that's inanimate around you, and then minds, basically anything that a mind within a living being that can be manipulated. And there's 30 manipulations, so 30 spells that you're going to get with this book that, fall into one of those 3 categories. And each manipulation has 3 levels of mastery. So as you progress through the magic system and level up through that magic system, you can then go from, I'm a novice pain engagement person with body, which pain engage is a manipulation where you just deal someone some pain while you're gripping onto them, deal some damage to them basically while you're gripping onto them. You might start at novice and then move up to adept and eventually become a master at that. And as you progress, it becomes more useful, more dangerous, and more powerful as you go through each one of those advancements. So you have 30 manipulations, but each manipulation has 3 steps of advancement, So it's a super expansive system that gives you mountains of options, and a lot of them, because it's a system agnostic magic system, have interpretable options that a GM and a player can discuss the first time they use it, and then they can replicate that every time that they use it after that and do so. And like I said, this could be anything from dealing out someone some pain, growing an extra set of arms for yourself, changing someone's age by literally manipulating their age. It could be stealing memories from people. It can be telepathically communicating. It can be literally pulling objects out of sand and transmuting the sand into objects, sand bending and pushing sand to enemies, changing terrain, all manner of stuff. So it's super, super deep, super diverse, and has loads of options for players.
So you mentioned one of the ways that you're able to kind of interact with this world is ingesting in some way this spice-like material. As far as like restoring, let's use game terms. Normally, I use up all my spell slots or all my magic points, take a long rest, it all comes back. Is there kind of a scarcity aspect of, well, I have to ingest this stuff in order to get my abilities back? Or is it kind of a more traditional, take your long rest, you're good to go?
Great question. The answer is yes and yes. The answer is double yes. So basically, your flow points will refresh essentially, or restore at the end of a long rest essentially, or as we stipulate, an 8-hour rest basically. However, there's 2 other aspects going on here. One is you can spend your own hit points or your own health, or however that's denoted by your system, to give yourself flow points in the moment. So you can exert yourself and gain flow points in the moment. So you have another resource to spend to gain these magical abilities. And then finally, to answer the crystal thing, if you do not consume the crystal or inhale the crystal within X amount of hours, you come out of the current and become a normal person again. So you then no longer have access to your flow points or the ability to manipulate the wave frequencies around you. So you have to, if you are someone who wishes to use this frequently, either have to be, inhaling it as you, and whether that's through like an inhaler or whatever method you want to kind of inhale it in, that's up to the players. It then has to be renewed every 8 or so hours, basically. So it's typically in a day, a player, if they want to keep it consistent and always have that ability to hand, they have to be inhaling the crystal probably 2 to 3 times a day, basically, to stay on top of that. However, again, with all of this, the more you inhale the crystal, the closer you get to something called the blue sickness, which is this disease that starts taking over your body and you will eventually die from. There is no current known way to heal, prevent, or slow down the effects of blue sickness, basically. So that is something that no matter how much if you're a magic user, if you use it for too long, you eventually are going to start basically decaying your body and causing your body to begin shutting down from the inside out.
Very, very interesting. So my background in post-apocalyptic desert worlds, one of my first introductions to Dungeons and Dragons ever was when I was a very young boy. I watched my dad play Dark Sun Shattered Lands.
Yeah.
I'm a massive Dark Sun fan. The way that you describe kind of the three different schools does feel a little bit reminiscent of the psychokinetic, telepathic, and metabolistic psionic powers. Were those
Yeah.
some of an inspiration, or was it just kind of I can't remember the term now. Just I mean, in fiction that exists everywhere.
Fantastic question. I would say, I have known of Dark Sun. I have read some Dark Sun supplements. I have never played it myself, though. So no, it was not a direct inspiration. A lot of this, honestly, came from I'm a weird continuity person. I have to have, like, everything has to make perfect sense in the lore of my world, or else I get a little bit stressed out. Just my neurospiciness going a little bit wild there. And so the number of ways that you can manipulate is exactly half of the amount of auras that you can see, which is the same number of frequencies that the Doflok can sing to, which is the same number of gears that the speed state has. You know, it's the same number of social ilk rankings that we have for the Kaid. It's the same number of steps that you can progress in the Skara unique style system that we have. So I'm just a stickler for like a continuity thing and a number like thing going on. So I really like to bake that in. So I chose 3 different things. Also because, you know, when you're looking to create a magic system, I'll talk about game design generally, you know, you want to be able to create some overarching stuff as well as some specific things. So when I'm talking about the ability to manipulate things, often, so we look at Avatar: The Last Airbender, the ability to manipulate elements, the elements within the planet around you. That is what they are manipulating, basically. If you look at the Wheel of Time, they are pulling on the weave, they're pulling on the thread, the one power, you know, it is this thing that they're pulling on and manipulating, and there's different versions of the weave. There's different, you know, stems of the weave or threads of the weave, as they call it. And so it was me coming to a point of like working out what are the things that we're manipulating here? What are the unsettled able to get their hands on and make a difference with? And so it made sense that it was bodies, because, you know, you would go up to, if you're living in a desert where you're nomadic, you would want to be able to commune with creatures and talk to creatures and aid them and help them and things like that. You would also want to be able to protect secrets by manipulating things' minds and stealing memories and being, you know, things like that, and protect yourselves in a certain way. And then finally, you know, objects, that's everything. So no matter what, you want to be able to deal with the stuff around you, whether it's pulling a spoon out of a rock or, you know, creating a blade or a hammer from, you know, a stool or something like that, whatever it might be. You want to be able to interact with the environment around you. So that's kind of the path that I took to get there.
Fantastic. We're running a little bit short on time, so I'll do, I guess, a little more quick fire stuff. I myself am a big disability advocate. I myself am disabled. And I actually have one of my players in my Zelda TTRPG I run as a speech-language pathologist who is also fluent in American Sign Language. And I saw that one of the languages that you guys put in is actually based on American Sign Language. And looking through kind of the content you guys are talking about, how much, first of all, let's talk about, I think it was it ABBA, or what was the group that you teamed up with? APA, thank you.
APA.
I was close.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
One of them sings songs, the other one.
Yeah.
But what was it like working with APA and creating an ASL coded language?
Tom, go talk about what it was like working with APA, and I'll talk about the language stuff.
So I effectively, after Bodhi decided he wanted to to build a language, one of three languages based on sign language. We then started exploring, trying to investigate how we could do that. And Bodhi found this organization in London, and we spent a day. We actually, kind of organized a day that we could go to London, and so we met the organization staff and a person there. Her name was Lorraine. Was the person that was going to assist us on helping to bring our language to the TTRPG community in a almost like a teaching platform. So she signed a lot of the, let's say, the keywords, the alphabet, the numbers, the colors, and emotions within Scorched Basin. So she signed those. We had a whole setup with lighting and filming her and everything. And we've since then produced some videos of Lorraine, who was just a magical, she was a spark of just fun, really. And we had a great time in London with her. But we now have these videos, these tutorials of her signing the language so that those that are sitting at a table, if they want to interact with an NPC, for instance, or send a message to each other or to, let's say, another tribe, they can go through, the tutorials and then effectively start signing a little bit at the table. So that was really the inspiration for it. But even a few steps back, I'll hand over to Bodhi. His whole inspiration for languages took us down this journey. So.
Yeah, again, another little TISM wormhole that I went down there of just needing to like discover some stuff, and I wanted to make languages, and specifically for the unsettled, the people who use the current. They are having to physically interact with stuff to do their magical abilities. So I needed a way for them to communicate that allowed them to have, at least a hand free, a single hand free. And we wanted them not to speak as much because we wanted them to just be these silent kind of nomads that kind of exist. And though they can speak, they don't do it very often, especially when they're with, folk of their own tribe. And so I was looking at sign languages, and ASL has history in the military in America and was designed to be used predominantly one-handed, so that it could be, performed one-handed. And that made a lot of sense. Then the unsettled are able to communicate with one hand and do magic with the other hand. So it made a lot of sense that could be baked into their lore and the way they work. And I'm a big advocate of accessibility as well. Again, I'm dyslexic, a little bit dyspraxic, autistic. I'm on the spectrum for many different things, and without the accessibility that I've been gifted throughout my life, I wouldn't be who I am and where I am today. And so, it was an honor for me to be able to include this in our Kickstarter, to be able to, provide people with a way to learn a little bit about accessibility and possibly learn basic signs in ASL. I was so stoked to be able to do that. Not to mention, we also added in our Morse code language, which is a big one for now being used for accessibility for people who have had, things like strokes, heart attacks, paralysis. That is also a big form of communication that is internationally understood. So again, we're like, if we can teach people some of these languages at a fun setting at the TTRPG table, then who knows what they will then actually be able to use those languages with later on in their lives, So that was the motive behind all of that.
Fantastic. Well, again, we're just about out of time, but I did want to touch on one other thing that's actually one of the rewards you can get for some of the higher support tiers, which is, what is Homie and the Dude Builder?
Oh, HatD Builder. So basically, awesome question. We essentially have created a website that you can go to, get a small subscription to it, and basically you are able to build your very own dream airships and vehicles. We're hoping to import our land vehicles from Scorched Basin in there as well and get all of that set up. But currently there's over 300 parts and stations that you can choose from to build your dream airship for your party. So if you want to build a craft that that is super fast and uses lightning to attack people, and just lightning, then there's parts and stations for you. There's going to be an airship that you can make for you. Essentially what you do is you go through, choose your size, choose the parts and stations you want, and build it all through, click through all the options, and then it will spit you out a PDF stat block of that airship, ready to go, ready to be played in 5e and 2024 at the moment. Like I said, we're hoping to add our system agnostic land vehicles to that, and further expand it into some other areas in the future as well. But yeah, that's kind of the little direction that's headed. And we found it invaluable for our games that we played in the sky. I was able to use them to make, enemy crafts, our players craft, all that kind of stuff. Also just other ships in the world when I was designing stuff for, what are these people like? What kind of vessel do they use? Oh, just so happens Tom's character is from a floating vessel that never stops moving and is one of these. What would that look like? And you're able to build it out and design it. Not to mention, they can all be reskinned. Technically, you could reskin every part of this into land, nautical, space, and we do have a chapter for conversion at the back of Sky Zephyrs as well, if people did want to go about that as well. But yeah, it's this beautiful place that we're so happy exists, and Ben and Chris, our team, have really put hours of their life into making that thing awesome, and we hope to just keep expanding it and making it bigger and better as we continue to work on products as well.
Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, that's going to be our time for today. For everyone watching right now, there will be a link in the description. Head over to the Kickstarter page for the Scorched Basin. Find a reward tier that seems interesting to you, and get ready for some amazing desert-based nonsense. I, again, want to thank both Tom and Bodhi here for spending the time to talk with us and let us get to know a little bit more about their system. Any other final words that you'd like to leave with my audience?
Just want to thank you, Jody, for having us on. You've taken time out of your day to have us on to share our dream really with your audience, and we just feel really grateful and humbled by having you do that. So thanks a lot for doing that, and appreciate your time. And anyone that has liked what you've heard, head on over to the Kickstarter page and check it out.
And also, if you've enjoyed this episode, then subscribe to Trainer Jody's channel. Make sure you like, comment, engage that algorithm. If there's a creator that you love out there, it takes a couple of seconds to help them out and give them a little bit of love that will then increase their numbers, increase their viewership, and allow them to maybe book in more time for this in their lives and be able to give you even more amazing content. So, dude, thank you so much for having us. It's been like an absolute pleasure talking to you. You've asked some awesome questions.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate your attentiveness and just everything. Like Tom said, we're a couple of jabronis over here in the UK, and we just appreciate anyone who takes an interest in what we're doing. So thank you so much for the time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. Anyway, folks, that is going to be all for us today. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All those things are super important. Check out the Scorched Basin on Kickstarter, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.
Thank you.